All right, you guys, welcome back to the channel. So excited to have you here. So we are officially, I believe this is the second to last episode before the election, which is absolutely crazy to think about. And of course, my cat is back there wreaking havoc immediately. Fantastic. Love that for her. But today's topic is going to be the reasons. I'm sure you're all surprised to find out that I voted for Trump. I know, shocker. I want to talk about why I did that, what my thought process was, and why I think that you should also do that. With less than 2 weeks until the election, it is incredibly important that we are all going out and casting our votes. I know I've been hammering it a ton the last several weeks on every single social media platform I have, but I cannot emphasize enough how important it is. I know a lot of people think that their votes don't count, and it's not true. And the example that I keep giving, and I'm going to keep giving it because if even one new person hears it and it gets them to go vote, then it's worth it to me. Say 15,000 people all felt that their votes didn't count and none of them voted. That would have been enough to change Arizona from going blue to going red in 2020. This is going to be a very narrow election, and it should not be. Enough of us should show up so that it's too big to rig, as we have been saying. But I can understand how when you think about your one single vote, it feels like nothing. But when you think about the collective, how many people are also feeling that way, and when you start having that many people choose to not vote, it does have an impact. So it's incredibly important that we go out and get this done. But before we dive any more into that, this is your reminder to subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. It seriously does help me out a ton, and I appreciate every single one of you. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you leave me a rating and a review over there. All of my other social medias are linked down below, as always, if you want to check me out on any of those. And with all of that, my name is Noelle. This is Just Say No. Let's dive right into it. Okay, so I want to start off by saying that I'm not like a huge Trump person. Do I find him to be entertaining? I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And I'll never deny that. But he wasn't my first choice in the primary. He wasn't even my second choice. I don't even know for a fact that he was my third choice, but he is what we have. And next to Kamala Harris, he looks pretty good, doesn't he? Looks pretty good. When I think about my life in terms of affordability in 2018, 2019 compared to now, looked pretty good back then. It looked pretty good back then. And as I will probably say more than once in this video, I am not voting for the man. I am voting for the policies. I am voting for the future. I am voting for the country that I wish to see. And I don't know for a fact that Trump's going to be able to do that, but I have a feeling that I have a better feeling that he'll do it versus Kamala Harris. Let's be for real. Because when you think about Kamala Harris, to me, it's just more of the same. Let's just look at the last 25 years. 21 of them have been ruled by establishment figures, and it's been much of the same. And only 4 of those years were different than the rest. And so I'm going to bank my money. I'm going to assume that the person who's not a Washington elite, a person who's not establishment, is going to be the reason why that was different. But honestly, we can't even talk about why I'm voting for Trump if we don't at least address who Trump is for a second. Because there are a million different claims that are constantly made about this man. Probably the biggest one is that he's a racist. And when you ask people, how so? How is that the case? I remember one time I was at a Christmas party, and there was a lady there, and she was going on and on about how Trump is a racist. And me being me, can't keep my yapper shut. I just asked her for examples. I said, can you give me an example of Trump being a racist? And she blew her top. She was so unhappy. She left, actually. And I feel that I feel like that is the rule and not the exception, because there just are not examples of him being a racist in this way. Even if we wanted to steel man this argument, the best evidence that I can find for Trump being a racist is a lawsuit from 1973. It was filed against him and his father with their business practices. The lawsuit claimed that they were being discriminatory. According to the lawsuit, it said that the Trumps would not rent out apartments in a white complex to people of color. Testers were sent in, and they reported that white testers were told of vacancies while black testers were not told of those same vacancies. And it is also reported that black testers had their applications marked to indicate that they were black. Now, of course, the man at the top is ultimately the one who should be held responsible for what the guy on the street is doing. Meaning, in this case, Trump and his dad would be the ones who would be responsible for what is going on, whether or not they are aware of it. Now, what I do know is that they did have a policy that they wouldn't rent out to people who are on welfare, and that might disproportionately impact people of color. So I don't know that that is the sole reason or if there was more to it. But what I do know was that this lawsuit was settled and there was no fault or blame placed. There was no admission of guilt in the settlement of this lawsuit. So we have that story. But then if we flash forward to the 1990s, we have another story that is less spoken about, of course. In the early 1990s, Donald Trump is trying to open all of his golf clubs, this, that, and the other. And at that point in time, maybe still, not sure, it was a long-standing policy in Florida that golf clubs would not admit Jews or black people into their fancy little golf clubs. And so when Trump went to go get the permitting for Mar-a-Lago, they were refusing to approve his permits because he wanted to have black people and Jewish people included in his club. And in typical Trump fashion, he put out a statement saying local officials seem to accept the established private clubs in town that have excluded Jews and blacks, while imposing tough rules on his exclusive one. And he didn't stop there, and that's where this story becomes so Trump. He sent the town councilman copies of movies such as A Gentleman's Agreement and Guess Who Is Coming to Dinner, which are both movies about race relations and people who are not so accepting of certain races, which was quite a bold move. And obviously he got his club approved, and Jewish people and black people were both allowed in his club. So not only was he the first club in the area to allow people of other races into his club, he also fought back and publicly humiliated those who would not do such a thing. So I guess the point here is that even if back in 1973, his and his dad's business practices against welfare lent itself to discriminatory practices, don't you think that 20 years later, taking on an entire state, an entire portion of a state at the very least, an entire society which has its own culture, let's just say, of racism, don't you think that that would show a change in mindset or some growth? And isn't the left supposed to be all about that? I'm just wondering. But none of that matters because he's still racist, because he says horrible racist things. Of course, most memorable perhaps is that there were very fine people on both sides. I'm sure that you have heard the phrase in regards to the Charlottesville protests that happened a couple of years ago. And unfortunately, while this is probably the most prominent claim, it's just like, it's so literally not true. I don't know what else to say. So story goes is there's the protest going on in regards to taking down a statue or renaming a statue, one or the other. And some neo-Nazis and white supremacists decide to show up and protest at this already existing protest. And Trump makes a statement about this, saying that there are very fine people on both sides, meaning there are very fine people on both sides of this protest, those who want the statue taken down and those who do not want the statue taken down. And that's where the media leaves it, except they don't even mention the fact that he's talking about protesters there. They just say, he says that there's very fine people on both sides. And to present day, this is an accusation that he is battling. People are constantly asking him to condemn white supremacists and neo-Nazis, even though in that exact same speech, in the exact same sentence, perhaps even with the exact same breath, he continues on to say, obviously not including the neo-Nazis and white supremacists who should be condemned totally. Now, why would the media leave that part out? They know he said it because they watched it in live time, but yet they clipped this one part and put that narrative out there to make it seem like it was something that it was not. And what you will find, we could dive into so many other things. This is the case in most of these situations, is either he was taken horribly out of context or they just literally clipped out the rest of what he was saying. And this is by far, I would say, the most egregious example of this, because he's constantly asked to condemn white supremacists and neo-Nazis because of this statement, even though in the exact same speech, he continues on to do just that.
They put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Robert E. Lee are not the same.
Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, excuse me, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now, we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly?
No,
I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest, and very legally protest, because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this, there are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country.
And so you make your own mind up. You decide if that's stupidity or malice. But no need to worry. If he's not racist, the man is just evil. Remember the time that he mocked a disabled journalist? He was talking about a journalist who had said some not so nice things about him, and he made a motion that he has made many times before. But because this journalist so happened to be disabled, obviously the media clipped that and ran with it. Never mind the fact that he has made this exact same motion when he was making fun of Ted Cruz. And then they go on to say, because before he made the motion, he said something along the lines of, and you should see the guy now. And then he makes the motion, and then he makes the motions and makes fun of the guy who was groveling and sounded like an idiot. And they said, well, he said that you should see the guy, implying that the guy looks stupid because he's disabled. And, you know, I heard this expression or this saying recently, and it said, Trump supporters always take him seriously and never literally. And people who hate Trump always take him literally and never seriously. And this is such a good example of that, because if I were to say something along the lines of, oh, you should see him, he is so upset right now, does that mean that I actually laid my eyes on him? Does that mean that I actually even know that person in real life? Or alternatively, it's an expression. It is a saying. It is not intended to be taken literally. I'm just throwing it out there once again. But anyways, if he's not evil, he's a misogynist. Often we think about the grab her by the pussy comment. Is that vulgar and disgusting? Sure is. Do men say vulgar and disgusting things when they are hanging around other men? They do. They absolutely do. And I know people hate the locker room chat reasoning, but it's true. Most 99% of men are foul. Good men clean it up and act gentlemanly in front of women, but when they're alone and with other guys, they become children. And simply that's just what this is. And are we shocked that the snowflakes on the left are horrified and can't handle it? Of course we are not. But that's all it is. Because never mind the fact that Trump had more women on his team than any president before him. Never mind the fact that when he was building apartment complexes in New York, he hired a female architect when no one else would. Never mind these things, because he says horrible stuff. But I guess since we're on the topic of women, he doesn't just say horrible things. Apparently, he also rapes them. And I hate to say it. I really do. But like, did he? Because we've all heard the name E. Jean Carroll, right? I don't know how many of us actually know the story that she is claiming. The story that this woman is claiming is that Trump her in a upscale Manhattan department store dressing room in 1996. Of course, only to be revealed in 2019 in her tell-all book, because apparently she was low on the dough. Again, I hate to be that person. I do try to be sympathetic and understand and hear women out, but this particular case is so freaking outlandish. If this claim was made against someone who wasn't Donald Trump, nobody would even look at it even remotely seriously. This is a woman who claimed that is sexy. This woman is maybe, I don't know, just batshit crazy. Maybe just looking for a payout. You mean to tell me that the most famous man in the entire world, let alone New York City, in 1996, of all time periods, of all eras, 96, walked into a Manhattan department store, took E. Jean Carroll to a dressing room during business hours, her, left, nobody saw a thing. Maybe people did see it and they just didn't speak up then. Okay, why wouldn't they be speaking up now? No one saw it? Really? I'm sorry, it's just outlandish. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But we have courts that are out for Trump, and we'll find any case to bring against him. But yeah, is it possible that this happened? Sure, it's possible. I just don't think that it did. I just really, truly don't. That said, am I denying that he's been inappropriate with and towards women in the past? No, I am certain that he has. He's a playboy. That was it's literally his whole reputation. And if I could choose a different candidate, I would. But it's between Trump and Kamala Harris. And like I said earlier, I'm voting for the policies, not the man. And here's the thing is, I know people are going to hate to hear that, but it's the truth. It's the facts on the ground. I care more about the future of this country than I do the type of person that Trump is. And frankly, the larger point here is that Trump has always been this way. I just said that his whole reputation has been as a playboy. This is not new news. If you watch interviews of this man from the 70s or from the 80s or the 90s, you're going to see the same mannerisms, the same cadence, the same vulgarities, the same crudeness, the same rudeness that Trump has been. Trump is Trump, will be Trump. Not new. So when people act surprised by the things he does, when celebrities who were formerly friends with him, I think of Oprah. Him and Oprah were close. Larry King. You know who he was close with? Howard Stern. Isn't that funny? All act like he's goddamn Satan now. I'm sorry. Why should I believe you? Because you guys were pretty chummy. Until he ran for president. Is it because he threatened the way that things are set up? He threatened the power dynamic. He came in and wanted to change that. Maybe. Because I can't think of any other reason why all of a sudden he is the devil. When 5 minutes ago, You guys were on your radio show, Howard Stern, laughing it up, having a good old time. So yeah, that just doesn't check out. That does not pass the smell test for me. I mean, he was an icon. He was in over 200 different pop songs. He was in 200 different hip hop songs before 2016. People adored him. He was in Home Alone. He was referenced constantly. But he runs for president, and now he's the devil. All of a sudden, he's racist because he ran for president. And you know what? I would bet you $100 million that if he ran as a Democrat, if he didn't run as opposition to the establishment, he would still be beloved. They wouldn't have tried to dig anything up. They wouldn't have tried to make up any of these stories. They would have put him in a crown on a throne and hoisted him into the White House with their bare hands. The reason that they did this is because he ran as opposition to their established system. And it simply just isn't a coincidence that the people who have endorsed Kamala Harris, I'm thinking Liz Cheney and co., are all establishment types. And two of Trump's biggest endorsements are Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., two people who are not exactly chummy with the system. I've hammered that point particularly home in several episodes at this point, but it's just so worth making. It is so worth making because once you see that that line in the sand, you cannot unsee it. It becomes so obvious. But anyways, I could go on and on about the man because there's a lot to say about the man, but let's just talk about policies because I promise you this is where it's going to get really quick and really simple. And this is honestly probably going to be a pretty short episode because all of this stuff is common sense. There's not much to delve into because it's just common sense. I am not an economist. I am not a professional of any sort in that regard. But here's what I know. Gas was cheaper. Groceries were cheaper. Rent was cheaper. The prospect of owning a house was attainable. Under Joe Biden, all of those things have gone away. And I do not know for a fact that Trump will be able to fix it. I don't. No one does. But I trust him more than I trust the people who have been in charge for 21 out of the last 25 years. I am placing my money that he is going to be able to fix it over Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is going to give us a lot more of the same stuff. And between Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr., Elon Musk, between all of these people, we have such a diverse group of thought, each with different specialties, each with different gripes against the system, that there's like a chance, there's a tiny chance that something could actually change. I'm not necessarily putting my money on the fact that things will change drastically. I'm just staking money on the fact that they will improve. And that's literally all there is to it. I could have skipped everything else and just said that, because at the end of the day, it is that simple. It is that common sense. He is the change. This is a change election. Donald Trump is the change. And it is kind of unfortunate because we've had him for 8 years now. You're tired of him. I'm tired. We're all tired of him, but he is what we have. And he's better than what we have had. So with that, that's the episode, you guys. I hope you all enjoy. This was a quick and easy breezy little episode, probably not too long, and just easy to the point. So make sure that you give this video a thumbs up. If you've made it all the way to the end, thank you so much, you loyal listener. And we have one more episode before the election. So I know I pounded it in a ton at the beginning, but go vote. Go vote. If I find out that you didn't vote, there will be problems. We will have problems. You will be banned from the channel. All right, guys, I will talk to you all next Monday. Bye.